The NHL trade activity is picking up. We have multiple NHL trades to discuss, both involving the San Jose Sharks. They've completed a player swap with the Los Angeles Kings and a draft pick swap with the Buffalo Sabres. We'll get into the details of both those deals coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a couple of trades ahead of the NHL draft to discuss here today, both involving the San Jose Sharks. Sharks GM Mike Grier continues to be busy and is certainly making lots of moves. So the first move he made was trading defenseman Kyle Burroughs, who was signed for 2 more years, $1.1 million, to the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for forward Carl Grundstrom. Now, Carl Grundstrom's 26, pending restricted free agent with arbitration rights. His last year as an RFA. He made $1.3 million last year. And so far in his NHL career, which was largely with LA, but he did start with the Toronto Maple Leafs where he got his initial beginning, but most of his NHL experience has come since the trade to the Los Angeles Kings, where he's put up 67 points in 236 career games. So he's pretty well a bottom 6, defensive-minded forward. So with San Jose looking to add more, competition to their roster, a little bit more veteran depth, he can certainly go there and probably sign a 1-year deal and get more of an opportunity. There was word that the LA Kings were definitely wanting to move on from Grundstrom. They wanted to go in a different direction. They were not going to qualify him. And he obviously has arbitration rights. So the intention was always to move off of Grundstrom, and he wasn't going to get a qualifying offer. So they're able to trade him, bring back a defenseman, and Burroughs making $1.1 million for 2 years. So that's a good depth signing. We know that LA is, I guess there's a possibility they might be losing a defenseman or more here in free agency. We don't know about Matt Roy yet. And of course they have, and I believe Jordan Spence is a restricted free agent. He'll get signed. They do lose Matt Roy. That certainly depletes the depth on the right side of their blue line. Burroughs is not the same quality defenseman that Roy is, but he is a capable right shot, serviceable guy. Now, don't look at his plus minus because San Jose was god awful last year. But he's a Vancouver kid, had played in the Canucks organization for a few years. Is a decent, serviceable guy. Like, he's not a big star by any means, but he can play third pair minutes or be like a 6-7 type of defenseman. So decent pickup for LA. And the good part is, if for whatever reason things are not working out with Burroughs in LA, his contract is pretty much almost identical to the amount that you can bury in the minors and get full cap relief. So, pretty easy move there for Los Angeles. They move off of Grundstrom to get a defenseman that adds to their depth. And if they aren't happy with his play, they can bury it. So it's not, it's a good move for LA. And San Jose obviously gets a serviceable forward to come in for next season. Now, they do have some competition there. Still not clear if they're going to bring back guys like Zadina, for example. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Now, the other trade involving San Jose is they've moved up in the draft. We know they're picking first overall and are going to select Macklin Celebrini. That's no surprise or shock to anybody. But they also held pick number 14 that they had picked up via trade earlier. So they've now moved off of that pick and been able to move up to number 11 by doing a swap with the Buffalo Sabres. So they get pick 11 from Buffalo in exchange for pick 14 and 42. So the Sabres move back 3 spots for their efforts. They get an extra second-round pick to do another selection or make another move with. So the Sabres get more capital here. The Sabres are believed that we already knew for quite some time they were one of the teams that was very much willing, you could say, to move off of that pick. Either trade it for a player who can help the organization immediately, or maybe do something like this where they move back and get more draft capital. And extra picks can either mean a couple of things, and it could mean that they're going to give them more draft capital to go after another type of player too. Obviously, San Jose has a player in mind that they really want to try to grab, and they were not confident they could get him at 14. There's some that think that it might be Cole Yzerman, the BU connection, and maybe get Celebrini and Yzerman, which could be a possibility. But there's some that also look at this and say, well, you know what? If you look at the top D in this draft, like we got like somebody like Lev Shunov as probably going to go maybe 2, 3. Like, he's going to go in the first few picks. But after Levashunov, there's going to probably be a small run of forwards, I would think, between Demidov and Caden Lindstrom and Aginla. But then you're going to likely get a run on defensemen. And that's kind of in that range from, you're probably looking at, 6 to 12 range, where there's going to be mostly D-picked in there. And you're looking at, probably, Dickinson, Parekh, Bouillon, maybe Yakimchuk. There's a bunch of them. And obviously the Sharks, you would think, would go for a defenseman because they're starting to add more and more forward depth and don't have as much on the back end in their system. But if they really like Yzerman and they really like the ability, you get to have Yzerman join Celebrini and Will Smith and Eklund and all these other young forwards that they're accumulating here, then maybe they make that move. Either way, they get a chance to move up and grab another player. I mean, to have 2 picks in the top 11 is pretty sweet. So, we'll see what happens. Look, a few years back when they didn't have their first round pick because of the Erik Karlsson trade, when the Senators get the pick, except they were even higher, they get to pick Tim Stützle and Jake Sanderson, where they had picks 3 and 5. And look how that's worked out for them. They got 2 foundational pieces to build around. So the Sharks, not quite as high as those were, but it's in the same sort of category. I know with Yzerman, there was word that the Philadelphia Flyers had met with him yet again, and they're at 12, I believe, and there's belief that they had interest. Doesn't mean that they don't have other players kind of in that same category, but I wonder if it is Yzerman that they were eyeing, they might have kind of got worried that the Flyers were going to take him and been able to work a deal here with Buffalo to move up. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting for sure. I think it's more likely that they grab one of the top D, but it's going to boil down to who's on the board. I'm going to say that there's probably more than one player that they've kind of got their eyes on here, and they want to make sure they get one of them. But it's going to be interesting. Like I said, there's going to be a run on defensemen. I know in mock drafts I've done, when they were picking 14th, I thought even at 14 it might have been a bit of a stretch, but I thought with what was available to them to go for a guy like Solberg, the big Norwegian bruiser, I really thought he would be a good pick for them. Except for some teams, it might be considered a bit of a reach at 14-15, but for them, where they've already got first overall and they've got other picks in the draft, that I thought they could afford to use a pick like that on him, because a lot of the other more puck-moving, more elite skilled D are going to be gone by the time you get to that point. And now moving up, they might have an option to grab one of those guys. And if they don't, there's always Yzerman, who I definitely suspect Cole Yzerman will be there at 11. I wouldn't be surprised in a lot of drafts and mock drafts we looked at that he even went a little bit lower. But at the end of the day, the Sharks are busy. Mike Greer's busy making moves. I suspect that's going to continue. So we'll see what's ahead here. I did put out my final mock draft. I went 35 picks deep into the second round. So check that out if you haven't already. There'll be lots more content coming out to get ready for the draft, and lots more rumors about what we're going to see. The trade market is just starting to heat up here a little bit. So stay tuned for all your updates. We'll keep you up to date here. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, stick around so you don't miss anything, and I'll catch you next time.